I believe the company had a plan to phase out back shop operation in about 1957, actually as far as full forces. And it seemed like, too, that I noticed by that time that it was more of a day shift operation than around a clock operation. And it was in 1957 that the locomotives were given a kind of a once-over, whatever type class repair it was necessary, and then they would put them out in storage until the seasonal operation. Most of those was early 57 or late 56. Then that way they could start reducing forces. However, a couple of locomotives was in the back shop in 1958. But I don't know for sure if those ever actually got out or if they scrapped them right there on the spot.
The number of steam locomotives in storage fluctuated seasonally. Steam engines would be placed back in service during the fall rushes when there were insufficient diesel and turbine units to handle the increased traffic loads. Minor mechanical work was often necessary before the steamers could be returned to service. It was not unusual to find dozens of steam locomotives stored on one or more tracks at any one time. These ranged from the smallest 060 switch engines all the way up to the big boy locomotives.
Most generally, the locomotives were held on a storage track for quite a period of time, and then it was determined by the mechanical department as to their condition, as to whether they would be shopped or if they would retire the locomotive. And if they were to be retired, then they would take the tenders off and then shove them down into the store department area where they had a force that would cut the locomotives up. And that was done outdoors. Of course, later on, after steam was completely phased out for its operation, then the last locomotives that the UP cut up themselves was cut up in the back shop.
To aficionados of steam locomotion, the demise of a steam engine is a gruesome sight. However, with the advent of more efficient and lower maintenance diesel power, the retirement of the steam locomotive was inevitable. Here we see several Challenger locomotives being dismantled for scrap. Armed with cutting torches and cranes, a small crew could cut up an engine in a day or two. Many of the tenders were retained by the railroad and used behind turbines or as maintenance of way equipment. As a result, an amazing number of steam engine tenders still exist today. This morbid scene was being repeated all across America on dozens of railroads during the 1950s and into the 1960s. Over a 10-year period, steam locomotives all but disappeared from American railroads. After crewmen had cut the locomotive into pieces small enough to handle, a crane would pick up the segments and load them into gondolas. These cars of scrap metal were sold and taken to steel mills where the metal was melted down for other uses. By 1960, the sun had set for steam locomotive operation in the United States.